Welcome back to Kaulignation, your one-stop shop for all things Kaulig Racing, Dingernation, SVGNation, and more. And if some of the Trackhouse rumors come true that we're going to talk about in future videos, we might need to lean into Trackhouse Nation at some point. But for now, we're here. I'm joined by Ryan in this one, and our multiple choice question for this video is: do you think Daniel Suarez will end up in the 51, the 10, or another ride altogether? Comment down below and share your thoughts there. Big shout out to our channel sponsor, Lynn, over at SVG Nation on Facebook. If you're an SVG fan, head on over there now. Check us out on Facebook at the places I mentioned off the top: Kaulignation, Dingernation, SVG Nation, and Kaulig Racing. Ryan, it's happened, despite Daniel Suarez thinking he wouldn't have word for a couple more months, and that was as early as 2 weeks ago. He's got word now. He is out at Trackhouse, meaning they have placed their bet on SVG and Connor Zilisch. And we will get to SVG and Connor Zilisch very shortly. But first, I want to start with Daniel Suarez, man. I think he's a gifted race car driver. I think he's a really good person. Obviously, he just won in the Xfinity Series at Mexico. What are your thoughts on him and Trackhouse parting ways, and where do you think he lands?
Yeah, I think the writing was on the wall for Daniel, unfortunately. Honestly, for the last couple of years, the fact that he got his one-year extension last year was a little surprising to me. At the time, it was Zane Smith that they had in the pipeline over there at Trackhouse when he was leased out to Spire Motorsports. His performance just hasn't been very good the last couple of years. I know he did get that win in Atlanta. But prior to that, his last win and only other win was at Sonoma, I think in 2022. And his just week-to-week performance has not been consistent, and he was being outran pretty frequently by his teammates. So I had a hunch that this was going to happen. And then once Shane won at Mexico a few weeks ago, that to me was the final nail in the coffin. I know we talked about this for many episodes about whether Shane was going to be kept in his seat or if they were going to keep Daniel. Once he validated his worthwhileness on the road courses, it was pretty much set in stone. So I think this was the right decision for Trackhouse. I feel really bad for Daniel. I do think he's a talented race car driver, and I think we've seen in numerous examples over the years that a fresh start at a different racing team can make all the difference in the world for a driver. Just about a new set of ears, new set of eyes, different crew chief, car chief combinations can really unlock a driver that's been stagnant. And I think this is probably going to be the best situation for Daniel. Nobody wants to lose their job, but I do think he'll land on his feet, and I do think he'll recover and rebound and honestly have a better year next year than he's had this year. I just think that expectation and that weight of Shane and even Connor kind of looming over his shoulder has played a real part in his lack of performance this year. And I feel he will have a better opportunity. Well, whether that's in a Kaulig car in the 10, or maybe moving over to Rick Ware Racing in the 51, even possibly even going down to the Xfinity Series and driving the 88 Junior Motorsports car that we know Connor Zilisch will be vacating. So I do think he's got some options for next year. And I think as I said, I think he'll rebound and honestly run better. He's shown he's a very good road course racer. He's shown he can be competitive even on intermediate tracks. So I have no doubt that he's going to get an opportunity. It's just, will it be better than where he's at now? Definitely not. Now, if you're asking me, would I take him in the 10 car instead of Ty Dillon? I don't think I would. If I was sitting here today, I think Ty Dillon is the driver I would prefer to stay in that car. When we talked to Mike Cook a few weeks ago, he seemed very supportive of Ty Dillon as well. You want to build those relationships, and I've said this now for a little while. The Kaulig Racing needs some consistency, and changing drivers every season kind of just makes you have to start over, rebuild a notebook that I don't think is good for the organization. So my preference that would be Ty Dillon. But if Daniel Suarez came knocking and he brought some sponsorship, which we know he does have, I think it would be an opportunity for a fresh start for him, and certainly I think it would be the best option outside of Ty Dillon for Kaulig Racing. So I think that's a very solid landing spot. We all feel Ty Dillon's likely dependent on his own sponsors coming back, and if it shows that he can't compete with what Daniel Suarez brings to the table financially, I don't think it would be too much of an ask for Kaulig to move that direction. So either way, I think Daniel Suarez will land on his feet. I think Cody Ware is out at Rick Ware Racing now that they've sold, and they have 2 cars that they need to have drivers for. So it's as unfortunate as it is for Daniel. He has landing spots. He has opportunities for next year.
Yeah, I think I would go with Ty Dillon as well. He'd be my pick. But it's sponsorship contingent, right? Like, if he's not bringing in funding, then I'm sorry, you got to go. You already don't really have enough funding on the 16 car, and you can't have that with 2 cars again. That's how you end up in trouble. So we'll see what happens there. I know Chris Rice said today on Sirius that they didn't really have a spot for Suarez, but I can't tell you how many times Chris has spoken out of turn when it comes to free agency matters, and until I see the official report that Ty is reporting, I think it's fair speculation for everyone out there, regardless of who says what. Moving our attention to Connor Zilisch and SVG, obviously there was it was interesting because in a matter of basically 3 consecutive races, all 3 of those guys won. You had Suarez win the Xfinity race, SVG win the Cup race, and Zilisch followed up the next weekend and won the Xfinity race. So, they all put their money where their mouth is and delivered on some level. SVG, we knew, had options going into next year. There was obviously the sponsorship issue, which to me was the writing on the wall. The second we seen those paid schemes for Chicago and that was an actual option to have them split the car, it became a clearer picture for me. And I can't say who, like I spoke about in the last video, but I spoke with a NASCAR reporter who's at the track fairly frequently, and he said there was a lot of sponsor pressure on Trackhouse to make the move with Zilisch and bring him up to Cup. There's also pressure of not having another team poach him and get them in their Cup system. What are your thoughts on the Trackhouse lineup going forward? Looks mighty tough for me. In about a minute or less, man, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the Trackhouse lineup is definitely going to be formidable going forward. Listen, Connor Zilisch is going to be a rookie at the Cup level, and as talented as he is and as gifted as he is, it takes rookies a while to get up to speed and run competitive week in and week out. He obviously ran really well last week at Atlanta, but he survived the carnage. It's a drafting track. Those are the easiest tracks for rookies to get up to speed. He's also a very good road racer, so I do expect him to compete very towards the front in all of the road courses. He might even snipe a win, to be honest. He's that good. But he's definitely going to struggle, as all rookies do for the first couple seasons on those ovals. But he's going to get there. His talent is immense. We've already seen what Shane brings to the table. He's going to win 1 or 2 road courses every year, and I think Ross is capable of winning any given week. So I definitely think Trackhouse is on the upswing, and they have the ability to get all 3 of their drivers into the playoffs, I think, year over year for the foreseeable future. So really strong lineup for sure for the next 3 to 5 years for them.
Absolutely. Now, there's a question if the team will take a step back, if they make a significant move in a different direction, talking manufacturer change, and stay tuned for that video in the very near future. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all to keep up with all of our content. Ryan and I are working on launching a bi-weekly podcast that would be available exclusively through Patreon. We don't have the details for that completely worked out yet, but if you want more Kaulig Racing and SVG and Trackhouse talk, that will be the podcast for you. Until then, though, we will see you in the next video.